Joining us now, Gina Loudon in San Diego, a Trump supporter and host of America Trends with Dr.Gina, and here in Los Angeles, Wendy Gruhl, a Clinton supporter and former LA councilwoman. Thank you both for being with us. Gina, I want to start with you. Donald Trump had a couple of bad days to start off with, but it just got a whole lot better today. Does all this controversy over the New York Times story, does this now inoculate Trump from these kind of further stories?
I think it was, I opened the story myself, John, and I was waiting for the what, and the there just wasn't there. As we saw today, their main person in the story said actually that they misdepicted her, that actually Mr. Trump was a gentleman to her. I myself was surprised that it didn't seem like a whole lot of substance to the story, and for me, that makes me sad for women, because I think the more stories you have put out there in a crying wolf sort of manner, then when women really do have stories about things that actually do happen to women, be it politicians or not, people are going to be a little more numb to that psychologically, and I hate that point.
I mean, do you agree, Wendy? I mean, that there was really no there in this story to begin with, and now that I guess the main person in the story has come out and said, hey, I never said that, has it sort of really just...
A couple things. One, there were more than 50 people interviewed for that piece, and that the woman who said she didn't think the way they portrayed her, but she didn't say those words.
Right.
She actually said, those were the words that I said. And I think the important point to make is, this isn't just about the New York Times piece. Donald Trump, in his own words, whether it be through Esquire or Twitter or to the New York Times, has been offensive to women and has said things that for most women, and in fact close to 70% of women in the United States of America say they don't like Trump and they think that he is demeaning to women.
Well, it's funny you should bring up Donald Trump's own words, because that is now the focus of a new commercial which is about to be released by a super PAC, Priorities USA. They're spending about $130 million attacking Donald Trump. This ad you're about to see is their first commercial, and as I say, it'll come out in the next couple of days. Listen to this.
You know, you could see there was blood coming out of her eyes, blood coming out of her wherever. Does she have a good body? No. Does she have a fat ass? Absolutely.
You like girls that are 5'1", they come up to you know where.
If Ivanka weren't my daughter, perhaps I'd be dating her.
I view a person who's flat-chested is very hard to be a 10.
And you can tell them to go themselves.
Does Donald Trump really speak for you? Priorities USA Action is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Yeah, Wendy, the theory out there is that all that stuff, all those statements from Donald Trump already baked into the cake, that isn't going to matter. It seems that, if you're a critic, you say they're wasting their money.
I don't think so. I think a lot of people have been misinformed or haven't been focusing attention on who Donald Trump is. Again, we all are involved in it, so we think about it. But for the general election, people need to be reminded, and here in the state of California, about what kind of bully he has been, and that he hasn't been talking about policies. Instead, he's been offending others. And I think it's important for the American people to know that being president of the United States is not a reality TV show. This is about real people's lives.
Gina, I want to get you in on this because I want to ask you, get your reaction to what Wendy said. But first, as a woman and as a Trump supporter, when you hear and you see that attack ad on Donald Trump, what's your reaction to that? I mean, does it have any impact on you at all?
Yeah, absolutely. My immediate thought is, he is a normal guy, was planning to be a normal guy, probably didn't plan to be president. And the reason that works for him and such a significant portion of the voting populace out there isn't as concerned about that is simply because, we have things like terror coming across our borders. We have a $19 trillion debt. The voters in this country have given both the Republican establishment and the Democrat establishment a chance to fix this. And instead, it seems to have gotten worse and worse. And so I think people see him and go, okay, he didn't mean to be a politician. He is an outsider. Maybe it's time we give an outsider a chance. And then I think they look one step further at Hillary, who now is saying she's going to give Bill a position in her administration. And you look back at Bill's record with women, and even Hillary's sort of sweeping it under the rug and in some cases even intimidating these women that Bill abused allegedly. And you kind of go, gosh, I don't know who is really better for women, but I'm really concerned about the $19 trillion debt, the terrorists coming across the border, and the fact that my family doesn't have a job right now, or whatever it is. So I think people are just, they're prioritizing oddly.
Yeah. So essentially you're saying that there are other issues which people are going to focus on that they see as being more important than what Donald Trump may or may not have said in the past. Now, you brought up Bill Clinton. We want to get to that in a minute as well. But Hillary Clinton out on the campaign trail, she was actually spending her time mocking Donald Trump. Listen to this.
Let's suppose, here's the question. So what is your plan to create jobs? His answer is, I'm going to create them. They're going to be great. I know how to do it, but I'm not telling you what it is I'm going to do.
So, Gina, essentially, is that a fair point, though, here? Because, you know, what Hillary Clinton is essentially saying is that there's no policy there by Donald Trump, and she's making this point essentially by making fun of him.
Yeah, I hear that a lot, and I look at his website and I don't understand why people continue to say there's no policy out there, because there is policy out there. But here's what we do know, that Hillary has essentially admitted that she would be a third term of the Obama administration, whereby now 1 in 5 families don't have a single person in that family employed. Something is not working about the establishment rule in this country, and I think people see a businessman who's created more than 500 companies, and they say, I kind of like those odds. At least that looks to me like the way that the voters are responding at this point.
Wendy?
Well, I think the important part is Hillary Clinton's been talking about issues. She's been talking about the fact that there should be equal pay for women. She's been talking about the fact that we need to look at job creation across this country and child care for so many of the families that want to be able to go to work but can't afford child care in this country. She's talking about the issues, and I think her point is, we haven't heard for what Trump is really talking about and what his policies are. And when he does, he goes back and forth and flips and flops about minimum wage and whether there should be one or not. I think it's the American people want to know how they're going to be able to get through the next month and have a job and to be able to provide for their children.
Okay, I think we all agree that this coming up general election campaign will be, you know, a race to the gutter in some respects. We had this interview in the New York Times from Donald Trump. This is what he says. He plans to throw Bill Clinton's infidelities in Hillary Clinton's face on live television during the presidential debates. He goes on to say, just getting nasty with Hillary won't work. You really have to get people to look hard at her character and to get women to ask themselves if Hillary is truly sincere and authentic, because she has been really ugly in trying to destroy Bill's mistresses. Gina, is this really the kind of presidential campaign that Republicans want to run?
Well, the thing that I think is significant about Bill's mistresses is, number one, that she does plan to include him in her administration, as we said. And so she's sort of brought him back into this picture, which does sort of make him fair game. But there's the fact that, you know, Paula Jones was paid $850,000 to shut up, that Hillary intimidated many of these women. They tell horrible stories. You know, you have Juanita Broderick, whose lip was bitten through, she says, by Bill Clinton. And Hillary, still to this moment, I think could really be a champion of women if at this point she would say, you know what, those things that my husband and I let go and hid and swept under the rug in the name of politics, those things we did to women during my husband's administration were inexcusable. I apologize, and those things shouldn't happen. But we're not hearing that from her. And so I think that, honestly, it's a fair game topic when Hillary has handled it the way she has handled it. I don't think it's fair to the women that are victims of Bill Clinton, who, by the way, many are out there still victims and have never had an apology of any kind.
I mean, the argument, Wendy, is that, you know, beyond what Gina is saying, is that, you know, essentially they're saying you get one, you get the other. Bill Clinton's now, you know, being put in charge of fixing the economy, so they're both fair game.
Well, I think if we look back at the administration of Bill Clinton, and you look at the fact that the reduction in the deficit, that we had a strong economy, that we were at a time where people in this country felt as though our country was getting better. And so I think when you look back on that and you say, Hillary Clinton, I'm going to look at my husband, and he's had good ideas. He's have a proven track record. We're going to be a partner in that. But he's not going to. She's not going to get in the gutter.
Right.
Hillary Clinton is going to be the kind of person she's always been, which is she is principled and she's going to fight for the American people.
Okay. On Sunday, Hillary Clinton said Bill Clinton will be in charge of fixing the economy should she get elected. Today, what was interesting, when she was asked if he will be in the cabinet, look at her reaction here. Oh, we don't have this? This is apparently when she was asked if he'd be in the cabinet. She shook her head wildly and said, no, he won't be in the cabinet. So what is the issue then if what role will he play, and are they walking away from Bill Clinton, I guess, walking him back here, Wendy?
No, she's not walking away. I think she will count him as an advisor, as she always has. And he's been on the campaign trail with her across this country. And the most important thing is that Hillary Clinton is going to focus on breaking down the barriers for families that want to be able to succeed. She is going to be someone who knows about foreign policy. I mean, when you think about the kinds of reaction we've had across this world to a Donald Trump presidency, they're scared. They're scared about what that's going to mean for the United States and this world. She's going to be a person who's going to bring people together.
And Gina, is that a fair point? Because we have heard, from the last 48 hours or so, we've heard from the London mayor, we've heard from the British Prime Minister. There are concerns about Donald Trump, his temperament, his stance on, the temporary ban for Muslims entering the United States. This is a man, if he's elected president, will have to work with allies of the United States.
Yeah, actually, many foreign leaders have reached out to Donald Trump and said that they want to have conversations with him now that he is, of course, the presumptive nominee, because he is the one who has said, he is going to bring jobs back. He is going to stop the influx of illegals that is causing crime. I live on the border. I know the crime. I see it every day. And I also know that it is the immigrants in this country who are most damaged by our open border policy. The jobs are taken from them, and that's where the violence and the crime that does occur actually occurs. It is on the immigrants in this country. And so Donald Trump has taken those issues head on, and he said, look, the establishment in both the Republican and Democrat Party have failed this country economically, from a foreign policy standpoint, from a security standpoint. He's going to change that. While you compare that with Hillary Clinton, who has vowed to destroy the coal industry, who will do nothing when you think about jobs like the Keystone Pipeline, for example, and other things that really matter to Americans. And she's done nothing to disavow the current administration and the administrations prior, which have let us get to a place of literally doubling our debt in just the last 8 years and eliminating, as I said, 1/5 of families from the workforce entirely. Something has to change right now. $19 trillion of debt strapped around the neck of our children. I don't know if that's what voters can stomach for much longer, John.
Okay, very quickly, I want to finish now with John Kasich. He spoke exclusively to CNN, and he was asked in particular if he'd been approached by anybody, about this third-party independent run. He said he had been. He wouldn't say who called, but he had this to say about a possible third-party run.
We're not a third-party kind of a country, and and just to run a campaign to block somebody, to me, because at the same time, I wanted to win and I wanted to get to an open convention. My basic deal was not to stop somebody else. It was to be about the ideas I had.
So, Wendy, what does it say to you that some Republicans are willing to blow up their own party to try and stop Donald Trump from being president?
I think the Republican Party is in disarray. And I think what we're seeing every single day is that Donald Trump is showing his true colors, and that he's a reality TV star, not a presidential candidate. Kasich also included in that. When they asked him if he was going to endorse Donald Trump, he said, my daughters and my wife are watching.
Yeah.
I think that speaks volumes about his concern, and every one of us who see our children watching what Donald Trump says and what he stands for is not what America wants.
And finally to you, Gina, last word on this, because do you have any concerns, when children are listening to Donald Trump at a campaign rally and he says what he says?
I tell you, I have real concerns, and as a mother, I even have a special needs child, and I have big concerns about the way that, for example, Obamacare is failing our country, and Hillary said she'll expand that. I have a lot of concerns, but I will say this. The interesting part is that right now, Hillary and Donald seem to be tied, according to the Quinnipiac polling, as you've seen. That's very unusual at this stage of an election, so there's something that Mr. Trump is saying that is really, really resonating with the American public. They're concerned about the bigger picture, and I don't think they want to get down in the minutia with Hillary and the sort of the gender identity politics, the victimization that constantly takes place. I think people want to talk about what really is great about groups of people again, and how they can be successful rather than constantly being victims. And I think they see, many at least, see Donald Trump as a real vehicle to that.
Okay, and on that note, we'll end it there. But thank you both for coming in. It's been a great discussion, and of course, Donald Trump, the candidate who's been constantly underestimated all the way along. Guys, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
We'll have more on that New York Times.